The day countless alien races invaded our planet, the Dragon Kingdom rallied 100 million soldiers overnight. Citizens rushed to enlist, desperate for glory, eager to kill. But not me. Instead of charging into the front lines, I quietly joined logistics as just another nameless soldier. Everyone laughed, mocked me for being a coward and for fearing death. Even my superior stared at me, baffled, demanding to know why I would retreat when war was at our doorstep that I didn't bother explaining. I simply walked away, because the truth would shatter them. None of that bravery would help save humanity. Little do everyone know I have awakened 5 legendary talents. The power to tame exotic beasts, elemental mastery over ice, fire, wind, and thunder. A demonic gift that grows stronger with every kill. A formation ability that can stack infinitely, and the command to summon endless undead legions. If I max out these talents, I alone could repel an army of 1,000,000 invaders. But if I rush onto the battlefield too soon, just like in my last life, I will end up as one of the 1,000,000 corpses on the battlefield. This time, I refuse to repeat that mistake. In the first year of the invasion, countless alien races ganged up on humanity, descending on our beautiful planet like it was a free-for-all. In the initial stages, even though humanity had awakened heroes fighting for us, we were not able to produce enough of them, and their combat strength lagged far behind the enemies. We were quickly cornered to the brink of annihilation. But by clinging to humanity's tried and tested weapons, I'm talking about bombs and nukes, we managed to construct 10 defensive forts, the last bastions of humanity struggling to fend off an invasion from 1,000 armies. After over a decade of bloody fighting, 2 of our forts have fallen, weakening our position even further. Now we have no choice but to fight to the death. Estimates show that, in all the years of war, the eastern stronghold alone has suffered over 1,000,000 military casualties. As for the civilian toll, nobody knows. Slowly but surely we are being drained. Food, water, shelter, even the firearms used to fight them are shrinking day by day. So we turned once again to those with special talents. Legions of these gifted individuals were formed in the hope of fighting back, reclaiming our homeland, and ensuring the survival of our species. But it is not enough. The legions must expand tremendously if we wish to have even a chance at survival, let alone victory. At that moment in Yun City, by the border, an officer stood on stage and spoke with fervor. Behind me is the list of comrades who fell in last month's battle. They were our brothers, sisters, and loved ones, true heroes of Karma City, and of the entire Dragon Kingdom. His voice carried through the crowd as he continued, "Now, as the war against the invading demonic races begins in earnest, our city has no retreat. The Eastern Alliance is gathering 1,000,000 ability users to strike back. What role should Karma City play? We must guard our homeland. We must defend our rivers and mountains." The crowd roared in unison. "Enlist! Sign us up! We want to fight, to tear apart the invaders, and protect our Dragon Kingdom." The enthusiasm was overwhelming, until one boy raised his hand with an unexpected request. He wished to remain behind and join logistics. The officer froze, stunned that anyone would choose such a path in this moment. The boy's classmates instantly lashed out at him, calling him trash. "Logistics is for the elderly, the sick, and women and children." They spat. The officer stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Our people are being slaughtered. You are young, strong, and talented, yet you choose to retreat? Is this how you repay the nation that nurtured you?" But the boy stood firm. "I'm sorry, sir. I have my own reasons." Jeers erupted around him. But before the crowd's anger could boil over, a grizzled veteran stepped forward, a general missing his left arm. His voice cut through the noise. "Enough. Young man, your choice is yours. Enlistment is not mandatory. Though I regret such talent won't be on the front lines, I respect your will. Take your form and go." Amid scorn and whispers, the boy left quietly. The next morning, the new recruits, escorted by tanks and warplanes, marched toward the battlefield with blazing determination. Meanwhile, Nan Ziying lingered in the background, letting out a faint sigh. His refusal to enlist had already gone viral online, yet he didn't answer the accusations. Yes, they were all brave, But he knew this battle was nothing less than a suicide mission. Even a million-strong army would be crushed by the overwhelming power of the numerous races. In his past life, he had charged ahead, becoming a brilliant commander through blood and fire. He had sacrificed himself to forge 5 powerful talents within his body. But before mastering them fully, humanity fell. Though he slew countless monsters, the supreme ruler of the numerous races struck him down. Unwilling to accept such an ending, Nan Ziying's obsession reached the heavens, and fate granted him another chance. Rebirth before his enlistment. The talent tree he had created in death had returned with him. The beast-taming tree, the elemental tree, the Shura tree, the tactical tree, and more. If fully cultivated with time and vast amounts of source stones, they could overturn humanity's doomed fate. But rushing into the battlefield now would only squander this gift. The true path lay in the trial grounds, where countless mutant beasts roamed, each one a source of precious stones to fuel his talents. In the logistics division, mostly filled with the weak, the elderly, and the wounded, a girl leaning on a crutch sighed, "If only I hadn't been injured." Nan Ziying approached. "I'll be training in the trial grounds. I can help deal with the beasts there." Her face lit up. "Really? That would be wonderful. We've been struggling on our own. Come, let's get you changed first." Nearby, Andy Zhang frowned suspiciously. Why would a young man volunteer for the trials? A moment later, realization struck. He pulled out his phone. Isn't he Nan Ziying? The one trending online for refusing to enlist. Others gathered, murmuring with confusion. Why is someone who avoided the front lines coming here? Perhaps he's trying to ease his guilt. The girl handed Nan Ziying an alloy knife. "Be careful. These mutant beasts are dangerous." He accepted it calmly, brushing his fingers along the blade as old memories stirred. Without another word, he walked toward the trial grounds. The girl couldn't help but think, he doesn't speak much. But he's actually handsome. Auntie Zhang quickly scolded her. Don't be fooled. Handsome or not, he's still the coward who refused the front lines. Unmoved, Nan Ziying entered the trial chamber. After selecting his test, alarms blared. Trial commencing. Prepare yourself. Cages burst open, and monsters poured forth. But Nan Ziying didn't flinch. Heaven has given me a second life. This time I'll use it to the fullest. Activating his beast tamer talent, he drew on his past life's experience. Umbrella birds, mutant creatures once feared, were now merely training dummies in his eyes. His sword flashed, striking at their weak points, felling them quickly. A golden shimmer erupted from one beast, an egg of light. With this, I can tame another mutant beast, he thought. Though his body was still fragile, precise strikes carried him through. Low-level beasts might be annoying in swarms, but they were no true threat. After 10 minutes of relentless combat, Nan Ziying's number of tameable beasts had already risen to 5. Efficiency had clearly improved, but just then a piercing bird cry echoed nearby. Turning his head, Nan Ziying saw it. A massive umbrella bird, the leader of its kind, the umbrella bird emperor. Given his current condition, taking it head-on was risky. He needed precision, not brute force. Every strike had to be critical. His long sword clashed against the beast's hardened feathers with a sharp clang. This one is far tougher than I remember from my last life, he thought, steadying himself to try again. Meanwhile, outside the trial hall, the two aunties exchanged doubtful glances. The girl wondered aloud why it was already lunchtime and the boy hadn't come out yet. Auntie Zhang gestured toward little Lu, saying she wanted to see how long he could keep pretending. Other youngsters were fighting on the front lines, while he hid here, and if he tried to sneak away, she would stop him. Little Lu hesitated, noting that an A-level trial wasn't much easier than the front line. Before more could be said, the loudspeaker announced the trial's completion. Auntie Zhang smirked, claiming he must be giving up, but when she turned, she froze in place. Nan Ziying emerged, scarred and blood-stained, his clothes torn to rags, his face smeared with a mix of his own blood and that of the beasts. Stunned, they asked if he had really passed the A-level trial. He simply replied that he had cleared the first level, instructed them to deal with the bodies, and said he needed to clean up before leaving without another word. The women who entered afterward were shocked. The hall was filled with corpses, and few had ever passed an A-level trial. Back home, after showering, Nan Ziying studied his beast tamer panel. To reach level 3, staying on the first floor would not be enough. The front lines had already fallen back to the 7th and 8th defensive layers, and Karma City would soon be threatened. Time to cultivate was running out. In the trial grounds, the antis continued clearing corpses. One remarked that few had ever passed a level before, but Auntie Zhang dismissed it, saying he was only hurting himself to avoid the front. Her words faltered when Nan Ziying appeared again. When she asked why he was back, he answered that he wasn't there to help with the bodies but to go to the second level. She demanded to know why he would attempt it while so badly injured, and even little Lu advised him to rest, warning that the second floor held large mutant beasts. Nan Ziying, however, insisted there was no need and walked toward the tower. The second level was far more oppressive. A mutant bull charged him instantly, slamming him backward. He twisted midair to reduce the impact, but pain tore through him, proving this level was nothing like the first. The bull pawed the ground, preparing to strike again, but Nan Ziying's eyes sharpened. He leapt, driving his sword through its skull before twisting the blade and ending its life in a spray of blood. The rest of the herd faltered. Extracting the source stone, he considered that these were second-level beasts and thought it better to tame them first, then finish them later. Activating his beast tamer talent, red light burst from his hand, and the bulls froze, crushed beneath the aura, unable to resist. He stepped closer to one of them, declaring that they would serve as his experience from now on. 3 days passed in constant battle. The trial halls overflowed with corpses, and Nan Ziying's beast tamer level had risen to 6. In 3 days, he had slain more than 10,000 beasts, confirming the trial grounds as the fastest route to strength. But the time had come to move on. The wilds held stronger creatures, far deadlier than those raised within the halls, and taming them would be vital to humanity's survival. The manager approached, asking if he wished to continue and offering to keep the grounds open daily. Nan Ziying shook his head, saying it was enough for today and that he was heading into the wild next. As he left, Auntie Zhang muttered that he would not last long, but an older uncle nearby disagreed, pointing out that without him, they would never have finished so quickly. Nan Ziying ignored them, his focus entirely on what lay ahead. Little Lu hurried to him, her face slightly flushed. She told him he had been doing very well and that they would handle the rest. Nan Ziying turned, thanked her, and said it was what he should do. She nodded lightly and left him to his thoughts. At that moment, a convoy rolled into Yun's city, carrying soldiers wounded from the front. Medics rushed them to hospitals. Nan Ziying frowned, realizing the situation was worse than he had thought. A woman suddenly pointed upward, and all eyes followed. 2 rockets streaked across the sky, heading toward the front lines. Nan Ziying immediately realized the situation at the front line was far worse than he had imagined. Otherwise, they would not have called for rear artillery support so quickly. The day when the defense lines would completely collapse was approaching, and he needed to accelerate his talent upgrades. At that moment, several transport vehicles suddenly stopped in the wilderness. When the occupants got out, it became clear that the vehicles had broken down and urgently required repairs. A blonde girl suggested leaving the cars for the night, noting the abundance of mutant wolves nearby and that they could return tomorrow. But before anyone could act, a dark figure appeared in the distance, moving swiftly past the convoy. The blonde girl, puzzled, shouted a warning about the giant wolves ahead. It was Nan Ziying, preparing to head deeper into the wilderness. A short-haired girl reminded them that the wounded in the city were waiting for the medicines they were carrying, urging that they hurry. Reluctantly, the blonde girl prepared to drive off, but a scream outside the vehicle interrupted her, and they saw one of the drivers had been killed. Panic rose as a steel giant wolf appeared, and by the time they tried to move, the convoy was already surrounded. The short-haired girl picked up a machine gun and began firing, holding off the wolves temporarily. Nan Ziying immediately noticed the conflict, realizing the medical team was under attack. He faced a choice: continue forward to accelerate his talent enhancement or turn back to rescue those trapped. A large pack of wolves approaching from behind effectively forced his decision, and he moved to save the medical team. The concentration of spiritual energy around the wolves indicated they had grown smarter. The situation with the medical team was dire, and gunfire only temporarily suppressed the wolf pack. The girls inside the vehicle prepared for the worst, yet the blonde girl refused to give up, determined to protect the life-saving medicine for the wounded. Meanwhile, Nan Ziying was actively fighting the wolves, dispatching one with each stroke of his sword. He was absorbed in the battle until a giant wolf emitting a crimson aura appeared. Recognizing it as the Wolf King, he understood that killing it could save the medical team, and he acted quickly. The Wolf King had noticed his presence and approached slowly, while the surrounding wolves grew in number and aggression. Nan Ziying activated his beast tamer talent, causing a giant tree to erupt from the ground, binding the mutant wolves. The Wolf King's empowerment allowed the pack to break free, but Nan Ziying adapted instantly, using his talent tree to lift himself into the air and leap directly above the Wolf King. He landed a powerful punch on the creature's head and activated his taming skill. Invisible energy enveloped the Wolf King, clearing its eyes and calming the surrounding wolves. Nan Ziying then used his talent tree to tame all the mutant wolves, dispersing the threat entirely. The sisters in the vehicle had prepared to make a desperate escape, but the car would not start. The wolves surrounded them, and the windows shattered. Just as they feared the worst, the wolf pack's demeanor changed, their eyes gentle, even appearing somewhat harmless. The wolves retreated, leaving the sisters confused. Nan Ziying surveyed the pack, thinking that if he had maxed out his beast-taming talent in his previous life, he would have been far stronger and more prepared for the numerous races. Taming thousands of wolves on his first attempt was a major success. He instructed them to disband for the day and not attack humans, then prepared to move deeper into the area, knowing that defeating the invasion would require taming more mutant beasts. Just as he was about to continue, his phone received a message from the trial tower, calling him back for an urgent meeting. A high-ranking officer had arrived at the trial grounds and immediately began berating the staff, claiming the Yun City branch was disappointing. The person in charge attempted to explain that most of their personnel were elderly, weak, or sick and could handle only ordinary mutant beasts, not the above level 4 creatures they had been assigned. The officer's anger escalated as he reprimanded them for failing to support the front lines, emphasizing the urgency of ensuring supply and safety. The person in charge nearly collapsed under the heavy responsibility but vowed to arrange additional staff to assist. The officer intensified his criticism, claiming that no one in Yun City was capable, and expressed frustration that not a single person had volunteered for the front lines. Little Lu attempted to defend them, noting that the high-grade exotic beasts assigned were beyond Yun City's capacity. The officer sneered, questioning whether she considered his demands unreasonable. Right? There isn't a single responsible person in your Yun City. The first one who refused to enlist and deserted was from here, the officer declared. Auntie Zhang's face flushed with anger. She retorted that he had no right to speak so arrogantly, reminding him that her husband and 3 sons had died on the front lines for the country. She emphasized that the elderly and infirm worked around the clock to maintain the front line's supply needs, and he could not dismiss all their efforts with a single sentence. The officer smirked, calling her a shrew, prompting 2 high-level ability users to step forward and discipline her. But before they could act, the ability user who had spoken was suddenly thrown backward. The officer was baffled. At high speed, Nan Ziying returned. Auntie Li exclaimed in excitement at his arrival, while the person in charge recognized him and noted that he didn't seem as bad as the rumors suggested, having just knocked out a level 5 ability user with a single punch. The officer's tone shifted, questioning who he was and why the young people weren't fighting at the front. He raised his handgun, suspecting insurrection. Nan Ziying realized the man was Lin Yukai, who in his previous life had profited from war and was globally wanted, executed 12 years after the war began. Lin Yukai had trafficked essential supplies to the front, exploiting Yun City's processing speed of exotic beasts for profit. In this life, Nan Ziying would not allow such a parasite to prosper. but he knew his first priority was to drain the resources from Lin Yukai's hands. Calmly, he stated that there were no traitors planning a rebellion and that the workers were far from irresponsible. The elders supported him, reminding the officer that they had already sacrificed much for the war effort. Lin Yukai found himself in a difficult position. He had assumed Karma City was weak and filled with the old and infirm, but the emergence of Nan Ziying complicated matters. Recognizing him as the one who had refused to enlist, Lin Yukai noted his audacity to strike a superior. A level 5 ability user stepped forward to intervene, but Nan Ziying merely smiled, pointing out that without him, no one would be able to handle the tens of thousands of mutant beasts in the trial tower. Lin Yukai was momentarily stunned. So it was Nan Ziying who had killed all those beasts and sped up Yun's city's supply processing. Nan Ziying continued, observing that the exotic beasts Lin Yukai had brought carried evil energy and were likely beyond the capacity of other regions. He implied that Yun's city's ability to handle them made it an ideal target for Lin Yukai, and although he would take on the task, any attempt to kill him would fail. Lin Yukai, puzzled, realized the deserter's expertise with mutant beasts was genuine. It seemed prudent to let him handle the task. He agreed to send 5,000 exotic beasts, setting a week's deadline. If Nan Ziying succeeded, he would be left alone. If he failed, the entire city would be punished. As they departed, little Lu rushed over, offering help with the mutant beasts. Nan Ziying reassured her, telling her to focus on her own work. His beast-taming talent had already reached level 7, and the exotic beasts being sent were among the stronger level 4 mutants, boasting high defense and powerful mental interference abilities. Lin Yukai's greed had inadvertently provided Nan Ziying with ideal material to enhance his Azura talent. Soon, all 5,000 level 4 mutant beasts were delivered. A portly officer began reading the military decree formally assigning Nan Ziying the task. He had 1 week to handle all 5,000 beasts, or Lin Yukai would be given 1 week to finish the task, and Nan Ziying would face multiple charges including disobedience, inciting worker riots, and assaulting an officer with execution by firing squad if the deadline was missed. Little Lu looked incredulous at the mention of execution, but the officer scoffed, noting that Nan Ziying had agreed to the decree yesterday and asserting it was his duty to carry it out. He even patted Nan Ziying on the shoulder, commenting that he would enjoy the process. Nan Ziying accepted the military decree casually, noting that the officer was merely a messenger and there was no reason for excessive talk. The bodyguard prepared to intervene, but the portly officer stopped him, saying there was no point arguing with a man about to die. As handling the beasts required releasing anesthetic smoke, everyone donned masks, and Nan Ziying walked toward the trial grounds without hesitation. The portly officer was puzzled. He had been tested with psychic abuse but wasn't a psychic, and even he could not endure prolonged contact with level 4 mutant beasts. Surely, he thought, Nan Ziying would go mad. Yet, Boss Len's suspicion that he was a deserter was just petty paranoia, wasting time and resources. When that kid dies, all this merchandise will still be mine. You know how to report this to the boss, right? Don't worry. I'll report everything that happens here accurately. Meanwhile, for Nan Ziying dealing with level 4 mutant beasts, even if his body was paralyzed, his mental strength was still abundant. Not only that, these mutant beasts could even manifest illusions, but for Nan Ziying, all this was futile. He jumped up from the ground, thinking to himself that these illusions were just illusions. As long as he couldn't be mentally controlled, they were nothing but immovable targets. To upgrade as a talent, he needed more evil energy. Nan Ziying continued, demanding that the beasts show their real skills or miss their chance. Then Aloam's voice echoed in his mind. Looking back, he saw countless streams of evil energy gathering from the ground, wrapping around his feet. Suddenly, a consciousness entered Nan Ziying's mind, urging him to stop, to let go, to consider the price he had paid and the relatives who had died around him. His father, his mother. The voice questioned whether it was all worth it, reminding him of the overwhelming power of the numerous races and asking how he would ever take revenge. But Nan Ziying grabbed the evil energy beside him and told the voice to be quiet for a while. He pulled the evil energy into his mind, asserting that his vengeance against the numerous races was natural, and that only humans could decide the future of humanity. At this moment, the talent tree slowly grew from within his body. Instantly, he realized he was not alone. Once the Azura tree was activated and he entered the Azura state, his physical and mental powers could be exponentially enhanced, and the evil energy provided the fastest shortcut to improving his talents. As the energy continued to pour in, Nan Ziying's eyes turned blood red, and he roared in rage. Meanwhile, Lin Yukai was enjoying beauties and wine, muttering to himself about the scarcity of supplies. Not just in the Dragon Kingdom, but on the front lines of other nations as well, the situation was grim. He thought he needed to take this chance to make a hefty profit. Otherwise, all the trouble he had gone through to acquire these exotic beasts would be wasted. His capable subordinates were greedy, and he also had to watch out for secret investigations by the military. Lin Yukai finished downing the red wine in his hand. Just as he was considering where to find a stable way to handle high-level mutant beasts, his phone rang. Report. Sir, the Yun City branch where the military decree was issued has completed all their tasks. They've almost finished in just 4 days. Lin Yukai was shocked. You're saying they're already finished? Yes, sir. The task of 5,000 level 4 exotic beasts has been confirmed as completed, all handled by Nan Ziying. Lin Yukai was ecstatic, grabbing the lady next to him, calling it truly fantastic and instructing her to keep a close eye on that guy. The portly officer was incredulous, astonished that the kid had completed the task ahead of time. He had previously checked and knew Nan Ziying had no psychic abilities. How had he done it? By now, Nan Ziying's talent tree had reached level 5, and over these days, both his physical and mental strength had increased significantly. Though he hadn't broken through to level 6, he had acquired the first skill of his Azura talent. Next, he would venture deeper into the wilderness to tame even higher-level exotic beasts and accelerate his plans. At this moment, Andy Zhang, changing her usual demeanor, gave Nan Ziying a thumbs up, telling him that he had made them proud and that otherwise, some people would have continued looking down on Yun's city. After upgrading the Azura tree, Nan Ziying's perception of mental power strengthened. It turned out that the portly man was a psychic. Hearing the mockery, the officer was furious, insisting he must test this kid again. But a bodyguard nearby stopped him, saying not to break the boss's rules, to wait, and warning that too much residual psychic energy from the demons could cause interference. The portly officer lost his mind, declaring he would personally explain to the boss later. Several psychic attacks were then launched toward Nan Ziying, but he noticed the officer's intentions and decided to test the abilities of the Azura talent tree. The portly officer, attempting to invade his psychic system, found the effect was not as expected. Invading the psychic system should have allowed him to see the other psychic entity, but all he saw was pitch black. He then turned to look behind him, realizing something was wrong. Nan Ziying coldly bound the portly officer's hefty legs with evil energy, declaring that who he was didn't matter and that since the officer wanted to probe his psychic world, he would get a good look. A torrent of evil energy rushed into the officer's mind, more than he could handle. He screamed, begging for mercy, and spat out a mouthful of blood. Everyone around was stunned. Clearly, his psyche had been destabilized. Nan Ziying asserted that all of this was his alone, and no one could claim a share. Lin Yukai, the old fool, he could handle everything by himself, yet Lin Yukai did not trust him and had someone watching him. The two Andys were baffled, questioning whether leadership was really so stressful that a few curses could overwhelm someone. Meanwhile, a bodyguard, thinking the officer was affected by residual psychic powers, believed he must be mad and warned that continuing recklessly could ruin the boss's plans. He forcefully punched the officer in the head, leaving everyone speechless. The bodyguard explained that the officer had been affected by demon psychic power and was dangerous, justifying the intervention. He then reminded others to keep working. Nan Ziying displayed a strange smile. His Azura talent had now reached level 6. The next day, Antizhang greeted him, telling him they owed him for his work. Half of the branch staff had been sent to help at other factories, and military supply demands at the front had doubled. The 9th defense line had completely collapsed, and the battle situation was extremely dire. Level 6 was hoped to be sufficient for Nan Ziying to reach the top of the level. The level 7 ability user, Son of Thunder Punishment, had lost an arm and was barely alive, while the level 6 flame giant had died heroically. Nan Ziying hadn't expected the collapse to come so much earlier than in his previous life. The portly officer's death was officially attributed to psychic interference by demons, absolving Yun's city. Anti-Zhang handed Nan Ziying the official appointment letter as head of the Yun's city branch of the Trial Tower. Nan Ziying looked bewildered, but Anti-Zhang signaled that this was the recognition of everyone and that from now on, they would call him Station Head Nan. Despite the double tasks and halved workforce, Nan Ziying realized the success depended on himself. With beast taming and Azure talents at level 7 and 6, he could maximize efficiency, while others stuck to their roles. This also allowed more room to execute his plan against Lin Yukai. Little Lu began to appeal to higher-ups, but Nan Ziying stopped her, assuring that he had a plan, that he would be fine, and that the task would be completed. Just then, a shadow flashed past the door at a speed impossible for any worker. Nan Ziying chased it outside but found no trace. Suddenly, the cold muzzle of a gun pressed against the back of his head. The mysterious woman slowly spoke, instructing that he answer one question for every question she asked. She demanded to know about the next batch of mutant beasts, whether they were being delivered or picked up, while expressing puzzlement that he wasn't working with Lin Yukai. Taking advantage of the moment the lady was distracted by talking, Nan Ziying suddenly activated his Azure talent, knocking the weapon out of her hand with a swift move. But the lady was also skilled, quickly producing another gun and aiming it at Nan Ziying as she pulled the trigger. However, Nan Ziying's Azure talent directly swallowed the bullet. "Who told you I'm an accomplice of that scoundrel Lin Yukai?" he thought. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else." As she backed away, the lady questioned further, asking why he was helping him. Nan Ziying explained that he was not helping Lin Yukai. This was just a task assigned to their Yun's city branch by him. Even if Lin Yukai was the worm or scoundrel she spoke of, he was still their direct superior for now. Zhang Yuan was shocked, not expecting him to know all about Lin Yukai's dirty deeds so clearly. She proposed collaboration to take down Lin Yukai, introducing herself as Zhang Yuan from the Logistics Intelligence Section 2 of the 8th Defense Line, extending her right hand in greeting. Nan Ziying softly refused. Seeing this, Zhang Yuan's expression instantly turned cold. "So you're choosing to aid a tyrant?" she said, questioning him. Nan Ziying directly denied it, explaining that Lin Yukai's fate had already been sealed, and it was neither the time to act nor to collaborate with her, because she did not understand the consequences of removing him. Zhang Yuan pondered for a long time but still did not understand his reasoning. Nan Ziying slowly elaborated. If one wants to remove Lin Yukai, there were two options: assassination or internal exposure. Assassination posed the risk of more than one person being involved, requiring elimination of all and careful consideration of whether one could bear the consequences of failure. Internal processing required evidence collection, which could take an indeterminate amount of time. With the war at a disadvantage, if news of corruption in rare supply lines leaked, it would likely be interpreted as internal strife, triggering unnecessary chain reactions and causing chaos among the rear forces. Everyone would then only look after themselves, leaving soldiers at the front unable to fight effectively. After hearing this analysis, Zhang Yuan finally understood the serious implications and asked what should be done. Nan Ziying told her to leave Lin Yukai to him. She looked at him doubtfully, questioning if he really intended to handle Lin Yukai alone, skeptical that a deserter could succeed. Nan Ziying responded by releasing his Azure aura again, reminding her that they had already sparred before, and suggested a few moves to test. Zhang Yuan immediately sensed terrifying energy fluctuations emanating from him, the aura now more than twice as strong as before. Recalling his previous actions, she realized that Nan Ziying had chosen to handle mutant beast corpses in the rear, hunting beasts all day and night, likely strengthening his abilities continuously. With this realization, everything made sense. Nan Ziying then sighed, saying he had said what needed to be said and what shouldn't be asked, trusting her wisdom to understand that everyone had secrets, and that Lin Yukai should be left to him. Nan Ziying then made a request that after dealing with Lin Yukai, she provide more beasts. Zhang Yuan was puzzled, asking how many mutant beasts he actually needed, questioning whether he intended to hide behind human lines and become a threat to humanity after growing stronger. Nan Ziying reassured her that even in death he remained part of the human camp, aiming to completely expel the numerous races, admitting that his current strength was insufficient. Having said almost all there was to say, he left, and Zhang Yuan watched his departing figure, musing on his enigmatic nature and deciding to trust him for now. 3 days later, a large batch of mutant beasts arrived, their level upgraded from 4 to 5. Auntie Zhang was unhappy, but Nan Ziying reassured everyone that they were fully capable of completing the task. Hearing this, Lin Yukai laughed, acknowledging Nan Ziying's decisiveness and capability, noting that he was kickback-free and that the troublemakers in the intelligence group had been quiet, while frontline soldiers faced increasing orders. He patted Nan Ziying on the shoulder, promising that he would not let him down. Nan Ziying did not respond but methodically assigned tasks. Everyone should handle their own responsibilities, sending the batch of beasts to the first level of the trial tower, and level 5 mutant beasts with containers to the second level, ensuring no mix-ups. Lin Yukai commented on the efficiency of Karma City's work atmosphere, and Nan Ziying gave a slight nod, noting that all of Lin Yukai's provisions served as nourishment for upgrading his Azura talent. He pulled out the alloy demon blade and activated its skill, immediately releasing a terrifying aura. As the evil aura on the blade intensified, the swarms of mutant beasts became his Azura killing points, rapidly increasing his Azura level to 6. As he continued to swing his long sword, the Azura level surged crazily. Meanwhile, on the front lines on March 20th at Eagle Land's 8th Defense Line, a brutal battle lasting hours resulted in 800,000 soldiers and 50,000 espers perishing, causing the line's collapse. Nan Ziying's Azura level continued to rise, and by March 22nd, the North Glacier Defense Line collapsed, with 600,000 frontline soldiers dying in battle. His level progressed with the Alloy Dragon Azura Dragonslayer skill, and by March 24th, the South Glacier encountered a slaughter race in which 500,000 soldiers died within an hour. On March 26th, France's 8th Defense Line and Kawasaki Nation's 8th Line both collapsed entirely in just half an hour. By this time, Nan Ziying had trained his Azura Tree skill to max level, roaring as he fully released evil energy. The red and white energy shot into the sky, and the appearance of his max level Azura form changed, surging with red evil energy, while surrounding red and black energy rushed into him. Level 5 mutant beasts snarled eagerly, but Nan Ziying raised his long sword, red and black energy surging wildly over the blade, instantly dismembering many beasts. With a slash, he left a deep pit 100 meters deep, demonstrating the geometric increase in strength from max-level Azura. Saying Azura state disengage, his body returned to normal. With many source stones available, it was now possible to upgrade his beast taming skills. Currently, only Dragon Kingdom, Rice Country, and Hare Country were still desperately holding on, and the Eastern Alliance had issued another recruitment call, lowering the age to 16. At this moment, Lin Yukai walked over with a satisfied look, telling Nan Ziying that his efficiency had improved again and asking if he needed anything. Nan Ziying slowly said 3 words, "I want you." The bodyguards nearby broke out in a cold sweat, and Nan Ziying slightly smiled, clarifying that he wanted Lin Yukai to bring back a batch of steel wolves tonight. Lin Yukai breathed a sigh of relief, complimenting Nan Ziying's nerve, and left it to him. But inwardly he worried that any trick would see Nan Ziying killed in minutes. Meanwhile, Nan Ziying planned to eliminate Lin Yukai while ordering the wolf cubs to lure all nearby wolf packs. Looking out over the wasteland filled with red wolf eyes, his beast tamer level also rose to 7, though the next upgrade required astronomical resources. 10 kilometers outside the city, 3 military vehicles drove into the heart of the wasteland, with Lin Yukai, who was out wolf hunting, on board. The driver reported that there was a pack of about 1,000 mutant wolves ahead. Lin Yukai immediately ordered the driver to charge through, aiming to transport the mutant wolves into the nano cages as quickly as possible. "We can finish earlier and get back to other business," he muttered, momentarily relieved. Soon, though, he noticed something strange outside. The driver peered ahead and broke into a cold sweat. "Sir, we're surrounded." The pack of wolves encircled the 3 vehicles, prompting the guard to shout that they were steel wolves, an entire pack. Clinging desperately to the window, Yukai screamed, asking how something like this could happen without any warning and urging the guard to have the teleporter send him somewhere safe. But that hope died almost instantly. The teleporter's limit was only a single kilometer, while the beast tide stretched for at least 10. Their only option was to push forward, punch through the wolves, and pray for an opening. Gritting his teeth, the guard shifted the car into gear and sped ahead, the wolves tearing after them. At a distance, Nanzi-ing watched and recognized the perfect moment. He lifted his gaze toward the moon, as if confirming that it would aid him, then leaped into the air and landed ahead of the rushing convoy. "Let's tame a few wolves and wipe out these pests at once," he declared, channeling a surge of energy from his hands into the ground. His appearance began to shift as Xing activated his beast-taming ability. With a commanding shout of "Tame!" the power swept across the field, enveloping the creatures and bending them to the will of our protagonist. Inside the car, the guard noticed the wolf pack abruptly halt and muttered that there must be a beast tamer nearby. Yukai brightened instantly, hoping the man had come to protect them. But the guard reminded him that no beast tamer of such strength had ever been reported in Ya City. Even then, Yukai insisted it might be some hidden expert and that they should meet him. Perhaps he could be useful. Meanwhile, Xing remained planted in front of the 3 vehicles, having seized command over more than 100,000 steel wolves. The creatures raised their heads and howled, their glowing red eyes and razor-sharp teeth flashing while Xing gave his next command. "Tear this convoy apart. Leave no one alive." The wolves repositioned with frightening precision, triggering panic inside the car. "Sir, the beast tamer failed. We're surrounded," the guard cried. Yukai, realizing he might be right, immediately ordered everyone to unleash their full firepower. Soldiers from the other cars grabbed their weapons and opened fire, but the attacks did little. The wolves closed in relentlessly, one after another falling upon the men, flipping vehicles, smashing windows, and shaking the cars violently. The guard knew they couldn't stay there. If they wanted to teleport out, they had to act immediately. Activating his ability, he grabbed Yukai by the neck and pulled him out of the car just as a wolf lunged at them. A black and purple aura quickly wrapped around them, protecting them for the moment, but the wolf didn't stop advancing. With a roar, the guard shouted, "You beasts! Today you'll witness the strength of a level 5 Esper." Darkness expanded from his power as he commanded, "Teleport from Nano's cage." But before the attack even settled, more wolves surged toward them. Yukai trembled uncontrollably, repeating over and over that they were coming again. The guard could feel the strain. Nano's cage could hold only so much power. They couldn't keep this up. Teleport to the ancient city walls, he decided. The dark energy pulsed outward again, clearing the wolves from the area. But before they could take a breath, a voice spoke behind them. "I've been waiting. You took longer than I thought." Teeth clenched in fear, the guard turned and demanded to know who he was. The figure removed his mask, revealing Nanzi-ing. Yukai stared in confusion, asking if he was the beast tamer and whether he intended to kill them. With a transformed expression and a sinister smile, he answered with a single word, "Bingo!" Terrified, Yukai's anger trembled through his voice as he threatened that if Nanzi-ing dared lay a hand on him, not only he but his entire family would suffer terribly. Nanzi-ing simply believed him and stepped past the guard, replying, "Too bad you won't get the chance." He seized Yukai by the throat, cutting off his breath as the old man tried to call for help. The guard raised his hands again, purple aura flaring as he attempted another teleport. But Nanzi-ing surged with crimson energy, activating Ashura Dragon Hunter. The technique condensed killing intent into a dragon-like force capable of manipulating lower mental and spatial abilities. Their clash exploded visibly across the field as the guard shouted in disbelief, demanding to know how teleportation could be blocked and whether Nanzi-ing was a high-level Esper. Before the thought even settled, Nanxing yanked him forward by the neck and struck him hard in the face, instantly silencing him. With the guard incapacitated and nowhere left to run, Yukai could only beg for mercy. But the reply he received was calm and final. Sorry. Nanxing's hand extended, hurling Yukai straight into the pack of wolves. The beasts tore him apart in seconds, leaving behind only one unanswered question. Why would a deserter like Nanxing do this? But there was no one left to hear the answer. Under the full moon, his appearance still altered by the Azura ability, Nanxing simply watched the wolves feast before turning away from the old man's gruesome end. Meanwhile, at the Super Abilities Research Bureau, strong winds battered the buildings. A woman was finishing her shower when she sensed the surge of a powerful Esper from the direction of Ye City once more. She was Su Lang, a level 5 Esper, and she knew now that her earlier suspicion hadn't been an illusion. An extraordinary Esper had truly appeared in Ye. Grabbing a towel and wrapping it around herself, she said urgently, I need to report this to the Super Abilities Research Bureau right away. After everything had finally settled, our protagonist spoke calmly, telling the wolves there was no longer anything to fear and that they could leave. The massive steel beasts reacted with pure joy, padding up to him like excited pups, licking at him in affection. Nanxing returned the gesture with a few pats, though he soon asked them to stop and behave themselves. They were far too excited, so he had to reinforce the order with a touch of his ability. At once, the wolves obeyed, sitting down in unison and staring at him expectantly. With a soft sigh, he acknowledged that he still couldn't make use of them just yet, but he stroked their heads again, praising them for a job well done. As a small reward, he gently tapped each of them on the head with a quiet "good boy," which made their tails wag wildly in delight. Once he had greeted every wolf individually, he jumped onto one of the nearby cars and announced that he had a new mission for them. He turned to the pack and ordered them to head toward the northern jungle and hunt down some origin stones for him. The wolves lifted their heads and howled at the moon, eagerly accepting his command. Soon, snow began blanketing the entire city, and the scene shifted to Ye City's slaughterhouse. There, Zhang Yuan approached our protagonist, who sat on the stairs eating something, and informed him that Lin Yukai and his group had encountered a beast tied by the northern jungle the previous day and had been completely annihilated. Nanxing continued eating as if the news didn't concern him at all, which irritated her enough to ask bluntly whether he was responsible. Still chewing, he casually replied that he did mention wanting a few mutant wolves. Zhang Yuan placed a hand on her hip, eyeing him suspiciously as she questioned whether he had another ability, perhaps even beast control. He lifted a finger to his lips and gave a quiet, "Shh." Some secrets aren't meant to be shared, leaving her momentarily stunned. Turning away, she closed her eyes and added that she had already turned in evidence of Lin Yukai's embezzlement that morning. His assets would likely be confiscated soon. Xing stood up at that, finding the news quite pleasing. As he prepared to leave, she called out with a smile and offered to buy him a drink that night as thanks. He declined, claiming the nation was facing a crisis and he wasn't in the mood for ordinary distractions, and kept walking. But halfway down the path, he stopped abruptly and looked back. If she truly wanted to thank him, he said, there was another way. Her face immediately flushed with embarrassment, yet she still asked what he meant. With a nod, he proposed turning the slaughterhouse into the largest one in Y City, capable of receiving 10 to 100 times more mutant animals than the others. It wouldn't be difficult for her to arrange. Given the severe shortage of frontline supplies, her superiors would welcome the idea, and he could count on her support afterward. The next day, inside Workshop 4, Xing stood before dozens of mutant beasts. The area looked almost flooded. With his Ashura ability activated, he had crossed the facility while thinking that the plan had been ingenious. Once the place rose to the top as one of the biggest slaughterhouses, he could gather origin stones far more easily. With the capture of the giant steel wolves, he could soon amass over 1 million mutant animals. 2 days passed, and the system reported his beast-taming skill had reached level 7. Additional updates followed. He had mastered 100,000 level 5 steel wolves and collected 1,900 indomitable origin stones. To advance again, he needed 17 out of 270,000 points. In the northern jungle, he activated his beast control once more. As his aura enveloped the creatures, he commanded them to continue fighting, knowing the world's fate rested on him. Facing his wolves, he raised his voice and declared that today, he, Nanxing, was calling upon them to hold the northern jungle and defend their blue star together. His power spread across the icy plains, and he lifted his hands, manifesting a mystical circle as he said, "Level 6 blazing steel yaks tame." The energy swept outward, subduing the creatures. A mutant buffalo knelt in submission, and he instructed it to guard the plains of the white bone, collect origin stones, avoid harming humans, and await further orders. Rising onto 2 legs, the beast affirmed the command. Deep in Rift Gorge, Nanxing walked onward, mentally reviewing everything he still needed to accomplish. With another 1,000,000 origin stones, he could attempt to tame the unruly level 7 mutant monkeys hidden in the gorge. Those very monkeys were already watching him, analyzing his every move. It didn't take long before he sensed their sharp gazes. Level 7 beasts were expected to behave like this. A moment later, one of them finally attacked, launching itself toward him with brutal speed. Though impressed by their ferocity, he dodged the devastating strike and barked, "Tame!" letting his aura pierce through the creature. The monkey instantly collapsed, and Nanxing muttered that they were fortunately still within his taming range. But the danger wasn't over. More monkeys lunged at him from every direction. As he kept track of their movements, a thunderous roar echoed across the gorge, shaking the air. He whipped around, hearing another beast bellow with its enormous jaws open wide, and dread crept into his thoughts. Had the taming failed? With no other option, he activated his Assure ability, realizing he would need to defeat each one into submission before fully taming them. He struck one monkey with a powerful kick, shattering its armor and sending it crashing violently into the ground, smoke and debris rising from the impact. With his beast domination ability at level 8, he gathered power into his hands, ready to release it, until the roar echoed again from somewhere in the forest, breaking his concentration. The creatures, freed from his influence, became even more vicious, rushing him with the intent to tear him apart. Hearing the roar once more, he muttered to himself that it must be the reason the taming failed earlier. There were simply too many uncontrollable level 7 monkeys. Killing the monkeys felt like a waste, not just of potential, but of his own energy. So Nanxing broke away from their presence and sprinted deeper into the forest. He knew he had to eliminate the leader controlling this horde. With a powerful leap, he vanished from sight, leaving only a red streak behind him as the smaller monkeys gazed around in confusion. In midair, he caught one of the hanging vines and swung through the trees just like they did. The 2 monkeys chasing him had great physical strength but, unfortunately for them, very little sense. They slammed straight into each other, giving him space once again. Enraged, one grabbed the vine he clung to and bit through it, snapping it cleanly. As he fell, Nanxing acknowledged that their reaction was surprisingly sharp, but there was one fatal mistake they kept making. They underestimated their new master. He landed right on their heads, drawing roars of pain, then sprang off toward a smoother clearing, landing directly before the mouth of the boss's cave. "Come out, now," he commanded. When the towering figure finally stepped forward, he stated calmly that it was time for a change in leadership. As the massive creature lumbered out, Nanxing realized just how immense the Monkey King truly was. "Overwhelming pressure," he muttered. "If not for my Assura ability, I'd be on my knees already. This beast must have been at least level 9, maybe even higher." The Monkey King lunged with startling speed, and unable to dodge fully, Nanxing found himself caught as the creature opened its drooling maw to devour him. But he drew his weapon and declared, "Oh, you want a bite? Too bad. I don't go down that easily." He slashed at its hand, forcing it to release him, and he plummeted toward the ground. Landing hard, he immediately leaped aside as the creature's giant hand slammed into the dirt. The Monkey King wasn't willing to let him escape so easily. It chased him relentlessly, its enraged growl shaking the entire gorge. A blue aura wrapped around its hulking body as it landed close to where Nanxing struggled to his feet. The beast roared again, calling him out. He dusted off his clothes and snorted, "Oh, you think I'm stupid? Looks like I need to show you who really runs things here." That was when he activated his Ashura, Hell on Earth mode. The energy surged through him in a violent crimson storm as he shed his tattered clothes, revealing his full power. The wind spiraled around him, merging with his raging aura. Meanwhile, at the Paranormal Investigation and Monitoring Agency, someone asked Su Lang whether she was certain of the strange sensation she had felt earlier. The woman peered through a massive telescope while her colleague grumbled that it was past 3 in the morning and she was tired of these all-nighters. Su Lang insisted that the terrifying killing intent she sensed before couldn't be mistaken. The higher-ups had specifically instructed them to keep a close watch on Ye City these days. With irritation, she snapped at the girl to stop calling her older sister. They were the same age, and the only difference was development. The girl folded her arms and retorted that she was being polite by not calling her auntie. Su Lang wanted to fire back, but something caught her eye. She turned sharply toward the telescope and warned that something was approaching from the southwest, near Rift Gorge. Chun Kir, a level 5 aura perception esper, prepared immediately. She closed her eyes and concentrated as particles swirled around her hands. The universe is infinite, birthing all things, to observe, to uncover, to trace time. When she opened her eyes, her pupils had vanished, replaced by yin-yang symbols wrapped in black energy. Through them, she witnessed someone invoking the Hell on Earth technique. The earth splitting, red aura bursting skyward, and a figure descending into the heart of that inferno. There stood Nanxing, clashing with the monstrous Monkey King. His expression twisted into a fierce smile, eyes glowing red, veins bulging along his forehead, teeth sharpened into something inhuman. The sight was so terrifying that Chun Kir's perception shattered, and she collapsed to the floor. Su Lang rushed to her side, demanding to know what she had seen. Trembling, tears spilling down her cheeks, the girl whispered, He's an Ashura demon." Back in the gorge, Nanxing was fully transformed. His entire form radiated a blazing crimson aura, his eyes glowing with an unnatural hue. Staring down the Monkey King, he asked coldly, "Had enough?" The beast sat frozen among the rubble, the smoke thickening the tension. Placing his sword into the ground, Nanxing added, "If not, stand up and fight. Just don't expect mercy." The Monkey King tilted his head, blood-tinged saliva dripping as he slowly rose. Nanxing sensed the last flicker of fighting spirit, and it would be a shame for such a creature to die without using it all. So he made an unexpected offer. "How about joining my ranks? Let's face these 10,000 races together." The Monkey King stared at him silently, sizing up the fearless young challenger who dared to propose such a thing. Before Nanxing could guess its decision, the creature clenched its fist and launched a punch straight at him. But the strike halted just inches away. A moment later, Nanxing smiled and said, "Good boy," sealing their new pact. He extinguished his Ashura mode and returned to his usual form, sheathing his sword. Facing the countless baboons gathered around them, he announced that from this day forward, they would all serve under the authority of the Monkey King. They were to defend Rift Canyon, collect origin stones, and never harm humans or attack the cities. Standing before their newly recognized leader, he solidified the agreement with a final command: "Stay ready for further orders." As the crimson light faded and the wind roared through the gorge, the system notified him of his achievement. Beast Tamer level 8 reached. His new army formation was displayed. 50,000 giant steel wolves in the northern forest, 500,000 blazing steel yaks on the White Bone Plains, and 1 million wild monkeys in Rift Canyon. This was the force he had been preparing. Back at the Paranormal Monitoring and Investigation Agency, Su Lang lay on the sofa, deep in thought, before murmuring that she had sensed yet another powerful energy signature last night, one completely different from the previous one. But unfortunately, the girl cut in, finishing the thought. "Unfortunately, I can only use my rewind ability once every 24 hours, and only for 3 seconds. Sue stared at her with a "are you talking nonsense" look and replied that it wasn't what she meant at all. She was simply wondering whether those two powerful energy signatures could actually belong to the same person. The girl's eyes widened in disbelief. Was that really possible? They had monitored Eastern Espers for years, and many top 10 spots remained empty because some mysterious families never revealed their abilities. Yet this Asher showed up and instantly secured at least the 10th position, an absurd level of individual strength. Sue pressed her hand against her forehead and leaned back on the sofa, admitting she might just be overthinking it. They decided to release the rankings. The announcement listed positions 1 through 9 as usual, and then the 10th was given to a mysterious, black-clad man with an unknown ability. Lan Bing took the 11th with an 8th rank elemental power, and the 12th went to Chu Tian, an 8th rank spatial esper. The next day, a post spread online claiming that a shadowy figure had appeared in the Rift Canyon of Ye City. With overwhelming destructive strength, he had earned the 10th spot in the Eastern Alliance rankings. Meanwhile, Xiali handed the young man a towel and reminded him that his phone hadn't stopped ringing. After wiping his face, he checked it and found breaking news. Several countries and the 8th defense line had fallen. To protect their land, the Eastern Alliance was recalling veterans to reinforce the 5th line. His expression tightened as he dried himself, noting that not only were they losing faster this time, but the veteran recall was happening much sooner. Suddenly, his phone chimed. It was a message from his father. "Brat, if you're free tonight, come home for dinner. Your mother and sister miss you." Neither of them had expected this moment, yet our protagonist had come from somewhere after all. Elsewhere, an older man wearing an apron was cooking while apologizing to the reporter waiting in his living room. His family was coming home for dinner, he explained, so he had to prepare a proper meal. She was welcome to join them if she didn't mind something simple. The reporter, Fang Shan, said he was very kind, and that she only needed a quick interview about the veteran recall. Removing his apron, he invited her to begin. She asked to record and then started. "Mr. Nan Zhang Zan, we heard you signed up for the recall immediately. What went through your mind?" His face hardened as he answered that it was simply his duty. The reporter smiled knowingly and shifted to the topic she clearly had prepared. She mentioned his son, Nanxing, who had become infamous for refusing to enlist when he reached the required age. What was his opinion on that? Mr. Nan paused, fully aware of where she was trying to lead things. His expression stayed stern, but the moment was interrupted as his family walked into the room. His wife greeted him excitedly, saying she had just picked up Xiaoying and Shaosan at the neighborhood entrance. But when she noticed the interview, her cheeks turned bright red with embarrassment. Mr. Nan welcomed her warmly and asked everyone to sit, promising to join them once he finished. Turning back to the reporter, he gestured proudly toward his family, explaining that they rarely had the chance to all be together. His wife, Qinyuame, volunteered regularly. His daughter Nan Zishan was a medical esper. Then he looked at his son seated at the table and said that although the boy hadn't gone to the front lines, he worked tirelessly in the slaughterhouse, supporting frontline supplies. In his eyes, his son was a good kid, and as long as he didn't break ethical principles, he supported him fully. The reporter hadn't expected that answer, and embarrassment flickered across her face. His son chuckled softly, calling him an old fool. Still dissatisfied, the reporter abruptly turned toward Nanxing and raised her voice, shouting that the Eastern Alliance's 8th defense line had collapsed and many of his peers had died. Didn't he have anything to say about that? Seeing her yell at his son, Mr. Nan snapped. He told her to stop pressuring him, reminding her that anyone who speaks freely must be ready to hear what they don't want. Growing firmer by the second, he added that although he had been assigned to the 6th defense line upon recall, he voluntarily asked to serve on the 7th. Wasn't that enough? His son might not be fighting up front, but killing mutant beasts for supplies was just as dangerous. The city poured everything into supporting the front line. Wasn't that a contribution? Yet the media ignored such facts and focused on shaming those who remained behind. Nan Zishan stepped in, declaring that if it still wasn't enough, she had just applied to serve as a medical volunteer on the 7th line. That surprised the reporter, But the biggest shock came when their mother stated that if even that weren't sufficient, she would go in her son's place. Silence swallowed the room. Everyone stared at her while the protagonist struggled to keep himself from reacting too strongly. Finally, Mr. Nan apologized for the trouble and, to their astonishment, ordered the reporter and cameraman to leave. Shaking with emotion as the weight of everything sank in, the protagonist slammed his fist on the table and declared that if his entire family was going, then he would go with them. He rose to his feet, leaving everyone startled and uneasy. His mother asked where he was going so late, but his dark expression made it obvious how troubled he felt. He told them to start eating without him, mentioning something had happened at the slaughterhouse. Even then, his mother pressed him, wondering what could be so urgent that it couldn't wait until dinner. His father, head lowered and clearly saddened, simply muttered that they should let him go since he had his own duties and they had already seen enough. The protagonist lingered at the doorway, listening quietly to his father's words before finally stepping out. The submerged primordial forest ahead was pitch black. A harsh wind ripped through the trees as the protagonist sprinted forward. He muttered that he still had time left tonight and needed to tame the war elephants. Something rustled nearby, making him stop on instinct. He glanced toward the trees, sensing eyes studying him from the shadows, then shouted that he knew someone was there and to come out. The silence shattered when an elephant charged at him, swinging a piece of tree trunk with its trunk. Its massive size startled him, and the beast tried to strike, but Nanzing dodged swiftly. Pushing off the ground, he leapt onto the elephant's head with sword in hand, his aura bursting out. He told the creature he was in a hurry and didn't have time for games, then slammed his palm down with full force. The elephant submitted instantly. Its eyes flushed with Nanzi's red glow as he ordered it to warn the others that any disobedience would be punished with immediate execution. The elephant trumpeted, lifted its trunk, and stomped the earth, summoning its companions. Soon a herd thundered toward him, shaking the ground and sending dust billowing. They all looked bold and ready to fight, but a dark aura rose and forced their charge to stop. Nanzing stepped through the swirling dust, his entire body wrapped in that shadowy power, commanding the war elephants to guard the submerged primordial forests, gather source stones, and await further commands. Facing the herd, he watched them submit without hesitation, following their new tamer completely. The system then reported Beast Tamer level 8 with 3 million beasts conquered, 500,000 giant steel wolves, 500,000 flaming steel yaks, 1,000,000 untamed monkeys, and now 1,000,000 war elephants. Seeing this, Nanzi clenched his fists, thinking he had finally unlocked the formation tree and needed to speed up his leveling. Turning away, he said he would head to the slaughterhouse to gather source stones. Back in the slaughterhouse of Ye, he had already wiped out numerous mutant beasts. The system tallied 100,000 source stones and 10,000 deployable formations, enough for an upgrade. Studying the system screen, he wondered what the sword formation could do and released more beasts, their feral cries echoing toward him. Nanzing closed his eyes and chanted for the power of heaven and earth to summon 1,000 blades. In an instant, countless sword shapes appeared as bright blue particles swirling like a storm above him. He finished calling out the sword chi formation, and the blades spun outward in every direction, slicing through the creatures before they could react. Watching the display calmly, he noted that a single level 1 sword chi formation was too weak and decided to stack them, 2,000 in total.